The trouble didn't start with a scandal, really. It started with a microphone, or more accurately, the lack of one being used correctly. Back in late 2024, during the promotions for Heya, something shifted in the ether. Ive, the group that had been sold to us as the reset generation, the perfect collision of talent and visual, found themselves staring down a barrel of criticism that felt entirely new to them. It wasn't about plagiarism, and it wasn't about dating rumors. It was about the music, or rather, whether they were actually singing it. The Heya era was supposed to be their mature pivot, a darker, more sophisticated concept, but the MR-removed videos that flooded YouTube and TikTok told a different story. Fans and antis alike dissected the audio, stripping back the backing track to reveal, well, not much. The vocals were thin, the stability was gone, and suddenly the elegant confidence they trademarked looked a lot like lip-syncing indifference. It was jarring. This was the group that defined the fourth generation, and now they were being dragged for the same performance quality issues that plagued the groups they were supposed to have replaced. It's funny how quickly the tide turns. One minute you're the it girls, the next you're the can't sing girls. The reaction online was brutal. It wasn't just the usual haters in the comments, it was casual observers asking, wait, wasn't Liz the main vocalist? Because when you watch the live stages, especially the ones on the major music shows, the energy felt muted. There was a distinct lack of live ad-libs, the kind of thing that separates a performance from a playback. People started noticing the hand mics, specifically that Won Young and Yoojin, the seasoned IZ*ONE veterans, often held their mics at their chests or away from their faces during high notes. It's a common trick in the industry, sure, but for a group built on the premise of step back to leap forward, it felt lazy. The narrative that they were professionals who had traded guaranteed success for a gamble was starting to crack under the weight of a backing track. Then came the incident that really made the circus impossible to ignore. It wasn't a performance glitch, it was a human error, and those are always harder to spin. In early 2025, right around the release of Rebel Heart and the build-up to Ive Empathy, a clip started circulating involving Gaeul and a staff member. It wasn't a catastrophic abuse video, but it was one of those uncomfortable, visceral moments that makes your stomach drop. In the grainy footage, which looked like it was grabbed from a fan site or a sneaky bystander, you see the interaction. Body language is telling. Gaeul looked exhausted, which is standard for an idol promoting a comeback, but the way the staff member treated her luggage or hovered or barked an order, it read as dismissive. It lacked the veneer of family that K-pop agencies try so hard to project. The internet did what the internet does. It zoomed in, it slowed it down, it analyzed the micro-expressions. Was Gaeul flinching? Was the staff member aggressive? The Gaeul manager controversy trended for days. Here's the thing about these kinds of rumors, they feed off the image. Ive's image is effortless sophistication, so seeing a moment of reality where a member is seemingly bossed around or treated like a product shatters the fantasy. Starship Entertainment stayed silent initially, which is the standard playbook, but the silence was deafening. Fans were demanding an apology, an explanation, a firing, something. Instead, they got radio silence while the hashtags kept climbing. It made people wonder what happens behind the closed doors of the perfect group. If this is what happens in the hallway, what happens in the practice room? And you have to look at this in the context of who they are. We're talking about Won Young and Yoojin, who have been in the spotlight since they were children. They are industry veterans at 19 and 20. They know how to play the game better than anyone. So when the lip-sync criticisms hit and then the staff mistreatment rumors followed, it felt like a coordinated attack on their foundation. The Love Dive era, the 11 era, those were untouchable. But now, the skepticism that the industry watchers felt back in 2021, that thought, why mix veterans with rookies, was coming back to haunt them. The skeptics were saying, see, the foundation wasn't as solid as we thought. The rookies were growing up, and the veterans were showing signs of wear and tear. It's the classic K-pop burnout trajectory, just accelerated because they started at the top. Let's be real about the double standard here, because that's part of the story. Every fourth-gen group lip syncs. Every group has exhausted members and stressed-out staff. But because Ive positioned themselves as the standard, as the group that didn't need to shout to be heard because their talent whispered, the expectations were different. When aespa does a heavy backing track, it's part of the futuristic concept. When Ive does it, it looks like they're covering up a lack of preparation. That's the trap of being called perfect. You're not allowed to have an off day. You're not allowed to have a bad mic mix. And you're certainly not allowed to have a manager who looks like they're annoyed to be there. The Rebel Heart teaser dropped right in the middle of this mess, promising themes of independence and self-determination, and the irony was palpable. Here they were singing about breaking free while seemingly trapped in a cycle of performance disputes and staff drama. The release of Ive Empathy in February February 2025 was supposed to be the reset button for this narrative. The EP focused on attitude and individual member contributions. It was a smart move theoretically. Remind the public that these are individuals, not just a brand. But the rollout felt tense. The music show wins still came, of course. Their fan base is massive and loyal, but the vibe was different. The comment sections on their performance videos weren't just empty. They were battlegrounds. Listen to the MR removed, one side would scream. Leave them alone, they're tired, the other would plead. It was exhausting just to watch. The XOXZ release mentioned in their chronicles was meant to show creative growth, but in the public eye, it became another data point in the debate. Can they pull this off live? What makes this whole situation so frustrating for observers is that it feels so avoidable. The Ive Effect was real. They changed how girl groups debut. They brought back elegance, but you can't coast on elegance forever. Eventually, you have to deliver the goods. The 11 dreamy synth line worked because it was fresh. 4 years later, if you're still relying on the same polished visual tricks while the vocal stability wavers, the audience feels cheated. It's like ordering a steak and getting a picture of a steak. And the staff controversy? That's just the symptom of a machine that's moving too fast. When you have a generation resetting group, the pressure to keep that momentum going creates a toxic environment behind the scenes. The staff member in that video with Gaeul probably wasn't a villain. They were probably just another cog in the Starship machine, stressed out and moving too fast. But that doesn't make it look any better on camera. Now, as we sit here in the aftermath of the Attitude promotions, the question isn't whether Ivy is successful. They clearly are. The question is whether they can regain the trust of the general public. The uncertain gamble that Wonyoung and Yoojin took in 2021 paid off in spades, but the house always comes to collect eventually. They are facing the sophomore slump that everyone predicted, just not in the way anyone expected. It's not a musical slump. Their songs are still charting. It's a credibility slump. The teen crush groups are fighting for attention, and Ive is fighting to justify their existence as performers. Watching the latest stages, you can see the tension in their eyes. They know. They know people are critiquing every breath. They know the accusations are out there. The natural chemistry that seemed to happen overnight in 2021 is now being tested by the glare of the spotlight. It's ironic, isn't it? They disbanded Izwan to become something bigger, something reset. And now, in 2025, they are dealing with the exact same growing pains that every other group faces, just under a microscope that is 100 times more powerful because of who they are. The Ive Empathy title is starting to feel like a plea rather than a concept. We saw the cracks in the foundation, the dropped mic lines, the staff scuffles, and for the first time, the perfect equation looks like it has some variables we can't quite solve. The reset generation has hit pause, and nobody knows if the play button will work the same way again.